we were basically taken for granted by the mayor, by the city council speaker, and other people involved in city government. The local politicians all felt, hey, they're elected from the community, so they run the show. But that's not in a democracy. Baruch Hashem, we live in democracy. It's not how it works. It's the community, the people that vote, should be telling the politicians what to do, not the other way around. The Flatbush woke up. We're a community now. We're the largest community. We're organized, and we're going to get it done. And we're going to have the respect, and it's not just perception; it's reality.
So why are we here? The importance of getting out the vote for this primary season is probably, and I'll let Dov say it better than me, is probably the single most important political issue to face our community, maybe in its history. The chance to effect real change now, at this moment in history, with the changeover in City Hall and in the City Council, is enormous. It should not be underestimated. Bringing out 10 to 15,000 votes from our community could sway an election, whoever your candidate might be. Every vote will be counted, every block will be reported, and they will know if we did or if we didn't. If you'll notice, from the biggest candidates to the smallest candidates are pursuing us. There is a reason. They see a voting block, they see commitment, they see an interest. Do not allow this moment to fall.
When I first read about the formation of this group, I have to tell you that I was very, very excited. You know, one of the things that happened only recently, which to me was a travesty, was the reapportionment process that we went through, that we did not get another district similar to some of the districts that exist on the state level. Call it a Jewish district, call it whatever you want, but the fact is that we lost out, and that was a travesty. That should not have happened. And maybe if this group had been in existence as a united group, you would have impressed upon the people at City Hall, some of the local elected officials, you would have impressed upon them that we want a district that represents our community. And by the way, there is nothing wrong with being parochial sometimes. You know, sometimes you hear, oh, that's the only issue they care about. You know, we care about Jewish education. That's parochial. Well, every other community cares about their issues. If you're in the gay community, they may care about a lot of things, but there's one essential thing that is extremely important to them, and there's nothing wrong with it. Whatever your interests are, this is America, and you have a right to express it, and you have a right to stand tall and say, we care about everything, but this is essential to us. Where do you stand? There are over 500,000 Jewish poor in New York. Over 500,000. This issue has hardly been raised. I raised it with one candidate. You can make an unbelievable difference. Getting the vote out, making it a hope, you know, making it something that is a responsibility because it affects every single person. My not voting affects you. My not voting makes a difference in our community. In the last election for President of the United States, I got to tell you how impressed I was by one community in New York that came out to vote like I've never seen in my entire life. The race with Obama and Romney, I don't know if you ever looked at the numbers. What happened to the minority community? Unbelievable. I mean, 45,000 people voting in an assembly district. You know, if you're wondering what that means, is 45,000 a lot or a little? Well, in most of our Jewish districts, it was 30,000 or less, much less. It was unbelievable. And you know what was even more incredible? Obama didn't have a race in New York. It wasn't like they all went out because we got to make sure Obama wins in New York. They went out because they felt it, because they cared, and they wanted to make a statement. And it is time for our community. This is an unbelievable opportunity. It's before Rosh Hashanah, before Yom Kippur. If you stand together, at least 80%, if you stand together and work together, that every shul and that every rav, that people are brought out, this is absolutely critical.
And that's what's important about this group and organization. Because if you don't make a mark, then you are just a question. You were here, or if you do something profound to impact the lives of people, you make a statement with an exclamation point, you were here. And the only way you can straighten out a question mark to an exclamation point if you contribute something to the lives of the people who are around you. And no matter how fancy we are as a borough, no matter how much we have the Barclays Center and Barbra Streisand sings, the reality is that in every corner and neighborhood of this city, and this borough in particular, people are hurting. They're afraid, they're scared, they're looking towards organizations and governments to make a difference, to bridge the gap between certainty and uncertainty. 30 years of uninterrupted service I have contributed to the city of New York, and I want to continue to build communities together. And that's what this organization represents.
Thanks for coming out here. You know, the FJCC is doing important work. We all know that. Everybody around this room is individually doing important work, and by coming together, you're going to have a bigger impact. And the bottom line is that if the Flatbush community turns out massive numbers of votes, you will get everything you want. You'll even get a pony. Somebody on the way in said, what do you want? And the guy said, I want a pony. I said, that's a little bit tough. But if you get a big voter turnout, you'll get a pony. George McDonald agrees with me, so I appreciate that. And the reality is, if it's 30 to 40%, you will literally control every single local election and make an incredible difference. And that's really the message that I want to impart here today. This is great. This is fantastic. Because as elected officials, we know down to the block, literally down to the block, who's voting and who's not. And the only reason that elected officials focus on certain communities is because they know that they can turn out massive votes. And that's really what matters. And so I want to thank you, and I want to congratulate you, and I want to thank everyone for coming out here today. But I want to encourage you and remind you once again, beg, write, email, knock on doors. Rosh Hashanah is a great Yom Tov. 3 days in shul, back to back to back. I'm getting nervous just thinking about that. It's a great time to talk to your friends and say, by the way, you know, there's a really important election coming up, and if you came out and voted, you could make a very big difference. And let me tell you something, if we can go literally from 15% to 30%, just think about that. 70% can stay home. If 30% came out, you'd have one of the largest voting blocks in New York City, and I promise you, you'd take care of every single item on this list.
Shalom alaikum, Manishma. Hope everyone is well. I want to thank FJCC for inviting me here today. As was mentioned, I had a small part of Midwood. Very proud that it is now extended because I get to come to yeshivas and synagogues and rooms like this, and I just blend in seamlessly. So I really do enjoy that. Is that everybody really wants the same thing. It's really similar. People want a good place for their children to go to school. They want to eat good food. They want to have good jobs. And they want to make sure that their family and their children coming after have a better life than they do. Be safe and have good homes.
Property tax assessments have gone up from 2002 until this year 220%. There seems to be something wrong with the system where the assessed values are going up so much more significantly than market values. And we really have to get that under control. I don't believe we have a revenue problem in the city. We have a spending problem in the city. Our expenses have grown. They've doubled in the last 11.5 years. They've grown 56% over the rate of inflation. You get the growth of government under control, you can get the growth of taxes under control. They're directly linked together. And finally, public safety. There is no doubt in my mind that as mayor, I will support the police department and give them the resources they need to get the job done. I do not want to be the mayor when crime starts to rise. That's the last thing in the world I want. In fact, I would love to see not crime stay where it is. I want to see it fall and continue to fall. Because everything great that's happened over the last 20 years in this city has started with a new policing approach and the reduction in crime. We now have people living in all parts of the city that we never thought they'd live in before because we've eliminated the fear that we used to have all throughout the city of New York.
I want to make sure as mayor that we make yeshivas more affordable. Tuition is skyrocketing, so I understand the affordability issue well, and I've worked with the Borough Park community on that before when I was a school board member.
How do we fund non-public education? What does the First Amendment permit us to do? If you can answer that problem, then you can open up the floodgates to money. And that is the issue in terms of funding yeshivas that many people care about. It isn't merely a matter of my standing here and saying we're going to pretend we'll try to do it. We did it. We did it. Avi was the chair of the commission that looked at this issue, figured out what we could do that was both legally appropriate, that would satisfy the toughest scrutiny of the courts, and then also be politically feasible in the budget. And so we opened up funding streams that had not been accessible before. In the context of that, which we tried to do but didn't succeed, we put in tax credits in my first budget as governor. So this is something where I have not only said, here's what we want to do, here's something that we will, in fact, push for. This is not merely an illusory promise for something down the road. I don't want to talk raw politics. I think we're going to win this race. When I'm out in the street, people want to bring back somebody who fought for them. Let me just end with this. Everybody here knows more about my life than most people have to go through in terms of not only tabloid coverage, but everything else. And what I've asked the public and what the public is responding affirmatively to is the question, balance it all out. Look what I did, fighting for you, confronting tough issues. You know my failures, you know my sins, you know what I've learned from it. In the totality, do you want somebody with my skill set to be your controller? The answer so far has been yes. Because as I've said, and I wish it were my line, it was a clever turn of phrase, I made mistakes, but I've made a difference. Making a difference is what this is all about. And that's what I can say to you when I look at you and I know the concerns we as a community have. And I say we advisedly. I've been attentive to them. I've thought about them, not as a matter of politics, but as a matter of belief. Because again, for me, politics is not a profession, it's a cause. If it's a profession, I'd be doing something else. If it's a profession, you just want one job after another, and you climb the system, you do the political machinations to make promises you don't believe in. If it's a cause, you do what you believe in. And that's a very fundamentally different approach to life. So I thank you.
Thank you for inviting me this morning. As many of you know, that I've been very, very close to the Jewish community for the last, not 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, almost 30 years. I've worked with a lot of rabbis. I've worked with Rabbi Schneider on his board for 28 years. I've lit the menorah on Central Park South with Rabbi Butler for 25 years. I've also said that on January 3rd, when we take over, that I'm going to freeze taxes because taxes are too high. And that this is my first experience and my initiation to the Flatbush Jewish Community Council and Coalition. Can you erase that, Paul? Okay, let me start from the beginning. Flatbush Jewish Community Coalition. Slichus was late last night. We represent you. We should not be afraid. We want you to do what you're doing to make sure that the community is protected and gets the services it deserves, and that's what we're here for.
I might be the only one who's going to stand up here today and say I cannot solve every issue if I'm successful as public advocate. But there are vital issues that can and must be solved, not just taken on by the public advocate. And it's those where you have nowhere else to turn. You know, when you call 311 and it works, when you call 311 and you get the speed bump that you need, or you get the information that you wanted about what you need for your small business, that's great. Don't call me. But when you call 311 because you have an ongoing problem, because you feel like you're being unfairly targeted, and nothing happens, because it's not about letting the city know. It's about the fact that the city's policy is wrong. That's where the public advocate comes in.
I didn't come here to get Section 8 housing, or to wait to be on the dole, or to get a handout. I came here because this is a city of opportunity, in a country of opportunity, where the sky's the limit. We have an 8.4% unemployment rate in our city. In the Bronx, it's about 14%. For men of color, it starts to get to 30%. For these disconnected youth, it's off of the charts. But how are we going to solve that problem? By taking your money and giving it to people, or giving them an opportunity to work? Okay? You elect me mayor, it'll be the latter.